Night on the Mediterranean is not silence. It is wind, salt, black water that hides rocks like traps. A ship approaches the Egyptian coast timber, creaking, sailors squinting into darkness, hoping the shoreline does not appear too late. Then, a signal. Not a star. Not the moon. A human-made light, steady and high above the waves, so high it feels impossible. It is not just illumination. It is authority. A tower that tells every captain the same thing. You are near Alexandria. You are near power. You are near control. This was the Lighthouse of Alexandria, often called the Pharos, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. And unlike most wonders, it was not built to be admired from up close. It was built to be seen from far away by strangers, by merchants, by enemies, by anyone moving across the sea. A wonder designed to reach you before the city ever does. Alexandria was not an accidental city. It was a project, a statement, a new kind of capital built on the edge of the Mediterranean in Egypt, positioned for trade, for ships, for influence. In the centuries after Alexander the Great, Alexandria became a powerhouse. Wealth, politics, culture, scholarship, a place where the sea brought money and ideas in the same waves. But the Mediterranean can be generous and cruel in the same week. Ships can disappear. Storms can erase fleets. And a city that depends on trade must solve a brutal problem. How do you guide thousands of vessels safely in and out of your harbor at night, in fog, in bad weather without modern navigation? You build a lighthouse so tall it becomes a landmark for the entire coastline, not as decoration, as infrastructure, as survival. That is why the Lighthouse of Alexandria matters. It was a wonder with a job. Alexandria's harbor was one of the most important gateways in the ancient Mediterranean world. Cargo moved through it. Grain, luxury goods, people, messages, diplomacy. Every lost ship meant lost money, lost lives, lost prestige. And if you control the harbor, you control the bloodstream of the city. So the lighthouse was not only an engineering project, it was an economic weapon, a signal to the world that Alexandria was modern, organized, and rich enough to spend enormous resources on public power. Because a lighthouse that can be seen from far away does something subtle. It makes the city feel inevitable. It tells sailors and merchants, this is the center, this is where you come. The lighthouse is usually linked to the Ptolemaic dynasty, the rulers who controlled Egypt after Alexander's era. Accounts commonly associate its construction with Ptolemy I and completion under Ptolemy II. The exact timeline is debated in details, but the broader picture is consistent. This was a state project on an imperial scale. It was built on the island of Pharos, positioned to mark the approach to Alexandria. And then comes the human detail that refuses to die. A name, often given as Sostratus of Cnidus, is sometimes credited as the architect or dedicatee. There is also a famous story often repeated, not always provable in every detail, that he wanted his name on the monument, but royal politics demanded the dedication honor the king. So the story goes, he wrote a hidden inscription with his own name, beneath plaster, so when time stripped the outer layer away, the truth would remain. Whether that exact trick happened or not, the legend survives because it feels real. Because even in wonders, humans fight for credit. The Lighthouse of Alexandria was described as a multi-tiered tower, often imagined as 3 main sections. A broad base, solid and massive. A middle section rising upward with more refined geometry, and a top portion where the light source operated. Ancient measurements vary. Later writers give different heights, and we should be careful with exact numbers. But the consensus is simple. It was among the tallest structures of its time, a landmark that dominated the horizon. and its form mattered. A lighthouse does not only need height, it needs stability. It needs endurance against sea wind, salt corrosion, and weather that never stops testing the stone. That means careful engineering, careful foundation design, and constant maintenance. This was not a statue. This was not a temple. This was a machine made of architecture. Now we reach the most dramatic part of the story, the light itself. How did the Pharos actually work? Most descriptions point to a fire at the top burning fuel nightly, producing a strong signal across the sea. Some later traditions include the idea of a reflective device, often described as a mirror that intensified the light. This is where fact and legend blur. A reflective surface is plausible in principle. People understood reflection. But some exaggerated claims, like focusing light to burn enemy ships at a distance, belong more to myth than to confirmed history. What matters is the realistic core. A high flame, an elevated vantage point, and a structure built to make that flame visible for miles. And think about what that required operationally. Fuel must be transported upward regularly. Workers must maintain the fire. The structure must remain safe. The lighthouse had staff, routine, logistics. In other words, it was not only a wonder, it was a service. A nightly labor that turned darkness into order. Alexandria was famous not only for commerce, but for knowledge libraries, scholarship, the ambition to collect the world's learning. Whether or not every legend about the Library of Alexandria is accurate in detail, the city's reputation as an intellectual capital was real. And that makes the lighthouse even more powerful as a symbol. Because it is hard to imagine a better metaphor. A city claiming to illuminate the world. A tower that literally does it. For sailors, it meant safety and navigation. For the empire, it meant prestige. For history, it meant something deeper. The Pharos became a prototype, an architectural concept that echoed for centuries. Even the word Pharos turned into a general term for lighthouses in later contexts. That is what a true wonder does. It does not only impress its own era, it changes the vocabulary of what humans believe they can build. The Lighthouse of Alexandria did not disappear in a single cinematic moment. It suffered over time, especially from earthquakes. The region experienced major seismic events across centuries of the Common Era, and repeated damage can gradually weaken even the strongest stone. Repairs happen. Then another quake hits. More repairs. Then a bigger quake. Eventually, a structure reaches a point where maintaining it becomes impossible or politically irrelevant. And when the lighthouse finally fell into ruin, something predictable followed. Its stone became useful. Historic structures often become quarries for newer forts, walls, and buildings. In later centuries, a fortress was built on or near the same site commonly associated with reuse of older materials. The exact degree of reuse is debated in detail, but the pattern is historically consistent. Wonders rarely vanish into thin air. They dissolve into the next era's necessities. Power does not waste stone. Here is what makes the Lighthouse of Alexandria uniquely important among the 7 wonders. Most wonders were built to honor gods, kings, or beauty. The lighthouse was built to solve a problem. It was one of the clearest examples of ancient engineering serving daily life at scale. A wonder that saved lives. A wonder that guided economies. A wonder that told the Mediterranean night after night, this way. And that also explains why people mourned its loss. When a statue collapses, it is tragedy. When a lighthouse collapses, it is danger. The sea does not care about nostalgia. The sea only cares whether you can see the coast in time. So the Pharos was not merely admired, it was depended upon. The Lighthouse of Alexandria is gone, but its legacy remains in every modern lighthouse that stands against weather and darkness, repeating the same promise in different languages. You are not lost. There is a shore. There is a city. There is a way home. Now I want you to answer one question. Do you think the Pharos is the most impressive wonder because of its height and fame? Or because it was a wonder that actually worked every night for generations? Write your view in the comments. I read them, and I will highlight the strongest arguments. And if you are following this series, subscribe and turn on notifications because next, we reach the final wonder. Not a tower, not a statue, but a tomb so beautiful it became a category of architecture. Next episode, the mausoleum at Halicarnassus. Until then, stay curious.